Get ready for the Kamidoku podcast. Starting now. Thunder, take you!
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this very different Kamidoku podcast. I'm Christopher, and sitting next to me for the first time is the man, the myth, the legend. You know who it is, Toasty.
Toasty! How's it going, guys?
Yeah, so we've just returned from the Sydney premiere of Mortal Kombat 2. As you can see, we're actually in the same room. Not the first time we've been together in the country,
yeah,
but certainly the first time we've done a podcast together.
Yeah.
Now, certainly the setup that we have is less than ideal. It's taken us quite a while to get this somewhat working. I can tell you the camera that's filming us right now is actually sitting on a suitcase, followed by a trash can and a tissue box. But hey, if it works, right?
It works.
Yeah, so if you are new to the podcast, this is a pretty exciting episode, hopefully. Certainly the topic that we're about to talk about is exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you're watching us on a video format or just listening to us, certainly give us a follow if you can, because I think we have a lot to talk about this episode.
Big time.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, so we just returned from the Sydney premiere, like I've mentioned. Yeah. What do you think about
Harbour, IMAX,
Yeah.
The third biggest in the world, actually. So quite the joy to see it on such a massive screen. But obviously, just the fact that we were at the freaking premiere itself, and we saw a lot of the stars pass by, and we were sitting down in those seats towards the front there. Not too much in the front, though, but then we saw the stars kind of go up the stairs. They were actually sitting in the back watching a lot of the movie, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and to some extent, we were a bit worried about today because early morning, it just was just pouring with rain literally all day.
Yeah.
And the weather's been here and there, but in terms of rain, this is like the first day we've had rain in such a long time, and it had to be today of all days.
And then the next day after and the day after, it's beautiful, clear sun.
Exactly. But most importantly, the rain stopped when it needed to.
Yes.
And when we entered Sydney, basically, we certainly walked down just to see what was going on, and we posted some photos on our socials, and we saw everyone setting up the lights and all the stage and everything. And certainly for me, and I believe for you too, Toasty, was our first red carpet premiere. So I sort of didn't really know what to expect, but it was really cool to be there.
Yeah.
And essentially, when we turned up, we waited for the stars and they came out. And, it is surreal seeing these people we look up to in person. Obviously, we know some of them in person too, but it's still surreal to see them.
Yeah.
And just to hear the buzz, sort of before we went in, they were asking the stars about their characters and what they thought they might bring or what's changed.
They were all lined up on the stage, and there was somebody asking them certain questions.
Yeah. So that was actually quite interesting to listen to. But yeah, what actually got me was there was a lot of energy around the event, and the movie was meant to start at 6:30, and we were sitting in the theater for quite a while. And I sort of had the feeling that it would start a little later than usual.
Yeah.
But then it sort of dragged out quite a bit. And before I knew it, or before we knew it, a spotlight was sort of cast on a little staircase, and Simon McCoy was there. And what got me as an Aussie was just the simple fact that he was so proud that this film was pretty much, I think he said 100% of it was shot in Australia.
He did say 100%.
Which is a big honor for a country that doesn't have a film industry as big as, say, like the US.
Yeah.
And from there, it went to E. Bennett Walsh, And then finally Carl Urban spoke and really got the crowd ready for the movie. and like Toasty actually said, what I did not expect, firstly, I didn't expect them to come in, but what I really didn't expect was everyone who attended went up to the back row and they actually watched the movie with us. So when certain things happened and there were cheers and claps, like, I feel like the fans did that to those, like, essentially to them, so they felt like good about themselves.
Yeah, and first thing when the movie was over, I noticed virtually just everybody turned their heads to see that all the actors were still there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if they had any reactions themselves, yeah.
Absolutely. So with all the fluff out of the way, perhaps we should actually get into the movie itself.
Yes.
Now, what I will say is this movie, having only seen it once, and to some extent seeing it on such a large, massive screen, being the third biggest in the IMAX screen in the world, a lot of it's gone over my head. And I feel like I do need to watch it a second time just to be able to make sense of certain things. And even when we sat down to make a little plan of what we were going to discuss here, we almost couldn't remember what order everything happened, because like you said, it was like boots to the ground, and it was just, the whole movie was just action-packed.
It was pedal to the metal right from the get-go, from the opening scene all the way to the end. It was just nonstop. And, Makad Brooks was onto something there with his early leak. There was just so many fight scenes, so it's hard to sort of put them in order there. But yeah, kind of like you're saying, the screen was so bloody big, and we were pretty close to the front there, so we had to tilt our head up a little bit there, and I don't know, it just kind of felt like, to me, like you could only look so far in so many areas, and I feel like I probably missed some things in my first viewing. So to get even hopefully like a better seat, kind of like in the middle or something for the next film, and to see it on a broad spectrum area, hopefully we'll pick up some more Easter eggs and stuff like that, because I didn't really notice a whole lot the first time. It was so much going on. Yeah,
absolutely. And I guess getting into that intro scene, I think we essentially theorized that it would begin in Edenia.
Yeah, we did.
And it began in Edenia, and it picked up quick. It didn't take long for the action to begin. What were your initial thoughts on how it all started?
Well, first off, I thought just the camera work and the lighting was beautiful. I thought it looked so good. The music suited it perfectly. But Khan's entrance was very, very powerful. I loved the heart-to-heart that King Jared had with young Kitana before he stepped out and had the fight with Khan. And I just remember our initial reactions when we saw that fight scene go on. Honestly, the best bits of that fight, luckily, are not in the trailers. What we saw in the movie, we were blown away. We're like, my God! So that was pretty amazing. To be honest, I mean, that opening scene might have been one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie. I thought it was so well done. Loved it.
And if I was compared to this movie to MK21, that intro scene with Scorpion is arguably probably the best in that movie.
Yeah.
And to some degree, I feel like this, again, it opens so strongly.
Yeah.
I got a very strong, almost like a Lord of the Rings epic feeling. And that's what I've kind of wanted. So I feel like that intro is almost a 10 out of 10. Like, even the music, everything just gelled together so well. And we've seen from the trailers the way Jared, gets impaled and that sort of thing. But what we don't see is when, Shao Kahn shadow charges him into the pillar.
Exactly.
And then did he punch the pillar and it cracks and then it collapses?
And then it collapses, and the top half of the King Jared statue is gone now. So it's cool that in this movie, we see how that infamous statue came to be, because as I've pointed out in an earlier episode in a breakdown, that's the exact same statue that you see in Mortal Kombat Deception's Conquest mode. So to see that in the film, and now we get the backstory of, how that happened to the statue, that's like a deep cut right there, man.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And I definitely think it's worth mentioning with Shao Kahn himself. Like, I wanted him to feel heavy and to feel like a brute. And certainly I noticed in this film, whenever he walks, there was just an incredible bass and depth to his steps. And he definitely felt as big as he was. Yeah,
and you could just tell by the way he was fighting and all his different fight scenes in the movie that, yes, he was a lot slower. Like, it almost seemed like just a lot of the other fighters had a big, advantage on him because they were so much faster than him. But when he hit, you know what I mean? So I kind of loved how there was that diversification with some of the combatants in the movie, and Khan certainly is one of them.
And what I found wild too was when he was fighting Jared. I can't remember exactly what happened, but essentially, I believe Jared impaled him through the hands. And he essentially... Like, he got stabbed so many times in this movie. Stabbed and slashed. And I think even he had I think from memory, Jared stabbed one of his sword into his armpit, basically.
Yeah.
And he just almost like looks at it and then thinks, okay, and then turns it against Jared. And that leads to, of course, Jared's fingers being sliced off. And just pure. It's really the first time we see what becomes pretty common in this film, which is just huge levels of violence, which we'll get into.
To be expected.
Yeah. I guess from that scene, what's interesting too is how once Jared falls, well, I guess I'll take a few steps back. It looks like Shao Kahn is trying to take over Edenia, and it's a similar kind of concept where it's 10 victories.
Yes.
And that's the final one he needs to take over Edenia. And then once he murders King Jared, it's a matter of, this is mine now, you nil to me. And essentially he adopts Katana in that moment, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
I thought that was very interesting.
And I did not expect Sindel to bow down to him. I actually expected her to possibly do that and then just mount an attack and possibly die in that scene. But that didn't happen, right?
Yeah, that's true. But I think she was just thinking of her people way too much, and she didn't want them to die, and that was the only reason that she, bowed down to him.
Yeah. But yeah, that scene, I can't even...
It was such an incredible scene.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the highlights of the whole movie. I'm not going to lie. Once again, right at the beginning. But the performances were really good. I thought Anna Tu Nguyen did a great job as Sindel. And again, Martin Ford, very imposing, very intimidating as Shao Kahn. Should we bring up the thing about the accent?
Yeah, I mean, if you go ahead.
Yeah, it's it takes some getting used to. Shao Kahn's got like kind of like a British accent, right?
Yeah.
It's takes some getting used to, but I don't know. We'll see if Khan ever comes back here in the movie verse and so forth. But yeah, so that's that. But did you want to talk about a different scene or?
Yeah, I mean, moving on from there, we sort of moved to what we've seen a lot online, which is the scene where Kitana and Jade are fighting each other in a training sense.
Yes.
And, there's that one part where she loses her weapon and she pulls her ribbon out of her hair and essentially uses that to fight Jade and essentially overcome her. And then that, we'll get into it, but that sort of signifies the importance of that simple ribbon.
Later on, yes.
I was just going to say, because that ribbon was originally taken from Jared's body after he was murdered. So it's very important, has a lot of sentimental value.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Certainly that's what I was going to say.
Okay. From there, I believe we head to the convention with Cage.
Yeah.
And, we see that cool moment where he's, doing the little cheesy fight scene.
Uncaged Fury.
And the rocket launcher lady gets her ass kicked. And then essentially
they changed that from the little trailer they released online. Did you notice that? She shot it no problem and she was fine in the trailer that we got online. But in this one, she was like impaled and slowly dying and more or less accidentally shot the rocket launcher.
Yeah.
So that was a change up there.
Yeah. I was going to say I don't remember seeing that particular part in the release. But yeah, he's packing his car, Raiden and Sonya. It's a pretty famous scene in that parking lot.
Yes.
And he heads over to Raiden's Sky Temple, where they try to convince him to fight. And interestingly, Raiden basically said something like, there's 8 billion people on this earth, and the Elder Gods chose him. So essentially, even if he doesn't want to fight, like, he will be summoned and he has to fight.
And see, that brings up the question too, like why did the Elder Gods choose him out of all people? Well, he's a great combatant, but you got to think that in the video games, I might have mentioned this before, he's got these Mediterranean abilities that was passed on from his ancestors. Essentially, he clearly didn't even know it. It's because the gods more or less like bestowed his ancestors those powers. So, whether they're going to explore that or not in the third movie, I don't know, but it is a strong possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess what I found really interesting was there wasn't a lot of storytelling when it came to certain things. So, for instance, I don't even really recall a line, like, did anyone ask who Shao Kahn was? Why he's doing this, where he comes from.
Yeah.
I feel like there's, even if they said, if someone, for example, if Johnny said, who's this Shao Kahn guy? And they were like, he's an evil emperor from Outworld, which is another realm. Like, just give us a bit of backstory. I feel like
100%.
it was almost like it catered to the fans who knew Shao Kahn.
Yeah.
But if you take your grandmother, let's say, to the movies, she's going to go, who's this guy?
100%. Yeah. For like, just the like, what do you call it? The casual viewer. They're going to be a bit confused. So it would have been good to sort of give some backstory or clear that up. But I mean, at the end of the day, Todd Garner did say, this movie, we do it for the fans.
Yeah.
But still, we're just trying to look at a broader sort of view. And I think that's one of the things that I spoke with you about, Chris, is that this movie is fantastic. I was blown away. The action is incredible. But one of the cons of the movie was that I just think they should have elaborated a bit more. Like, they should have expanded on some story elements a little bit. It's not that I got desensitized to the action, because it was done very well, but I just wish they could have expanded some things with the lore a bit. As a fan, that's what I'd really like to see. Hopefully for the third movie they will in some capacity. And not to go on too long with this, but this further brings up my point that I think Mortal Kombat works best in a television format, because they can take their time really diving into these characters. And so that's why, I have a strong feeling this movie is going to be successful, that it'll branch off to TV. And then, maybe we can get, some casual watchers will understand some things better and so forth. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and just based on that too, and brings up another point. I just want to mention too that, we have just seen this a few hours ago, and we're very scatterbrained, so this episode may be a bit back and forth, so just bear with us. But in terms of storytelling, I think also not much, or if anything, is actually said about Shinnok's amulet. So a big part of the movie is about that amulet and its power.
Yeah.
And essentially, what is it? They capture the essence of Raiden, essentially Raiden's powers, and use that. And essentially, was it Quan Chi that pushed it into his chest?
Right, I believe so, yeah. And then the marking was there on Khan's chest there.
But then
immortality, yeah.
It doesn't actually embed in his chest. It comes out, so it's its own thing.
Yeah.
So I thought it actually would have stuck to him and stayed on him.
But I am glad that they actually mentioned Shinnok's name, though. I thought that was pretty cool. That they at least got a name drop there.
Yeah. But still, having his amulet but not knowing who he is a bit strange.
Yeah, again, exactly. People are going to be like, "Wow, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Who's Shinnok?" You know?
Yeah, because I thought they would have maybe referred to it as the amulet or something without the name.
Without the name.
Because the name really has no significance unless you know who Shinnok is.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Now, forgive us for this part. When it comes to Shao Kahn taking over Edenia, he then has his sights on Earthrealm. And that's where the whole Mortal Kombat tournament comes from. Now, in the sky, seemingly viewable from any location, are these 10 diamond-shaped cage things with fire inside. I don't know if there was a name drop.
I don't remember there being a name drop.
But there's 5 blue ones for Earthrealm and 5 red for Outworld.
Yeah.
And essentially, fighters are summoned, one from each, and they're teleported to a location where they fight. And what I found kind of interesting about that was it gives you an idea of how things are going on both sides, but it wasn't so clear cut which 5 combatants they were linked to.
Yeah.
Because really, if you stop and think about it, I feel like there were more than 5 bad guys on the Outworld side. So I don't know how that works, but essentially, I believe the first fight was Cage versus Katana.
Oh yeah,
and I thought the action in that one was fantastic.
It was great. Yeah,
I think I feel like in this episode I have nothing but praise for Adeline.
Oh, she's
her
wonderful.
portrayal of Katana goes above and beyond.
Yeah, I agree. She was just so phenomenal, and I have zero complaints, really.
Yeah, and the ferocity in her eyes when she fought, she was emotional, she was very emotional.
Yes.
Even when, from the trailer, those scenes where she kicks the fans into the wall, and there's one scene where Johnny's on a roof and she stabs her fan in and uses that to flip up. Even just the effects of the fans like sticking into timber and stuff, like it really added a huge sense of danger. Cage. Like I wanted to run away from them too. Like it really,
But yeah, speaking of that, I love that whole scene where, Cage is rusty as all heck. He hasn't had a proper fight in such a long time. He's just thrown into this, unwillingly. He just finds himself teleported from the bar. He's there. And it was great how after he was getting his ass stomped, he's essentially, running away, and then he climbs up on the roof there, and in a sense, at this point, he's thinking logically, okay, I gotta try to somehow outsmart her or something. I gotta try to get to a higher altitude, something. It almost reminded me of Mortal Kombat 1995 when he was climbing up to try to get away from Goro, to try to find some way to defeat, him or her, so that was pretty great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it really set the scene. I feel like once the gas was pushed and the tempo picked up, it never really let down.
No.
Like, it was just nonstop. Which is good and bad. Like, sometimes you need, as a viewer, you need a little bit of time just to sort of relax a bit.
Yeah.
Which is probably where this feeling is coming from of coming back here and almost not even remembering the order of what happened. So from there, at some point, we see Sonya and Sindel at the pit bottom.
Yes.
And we saw a little snippet of that in the trailer, but that fight was quite intense. The only thing I would say about it, like, things I loved were certainly, the scream was amazing.
Yeah, it was very well done. She used it so many times in the fight.
Yeah, and what I actually liked was they didn't just use it in the traditional sense, but she actually used it like to stop herself slamming into walls and to lift herself up. Like, that was badass.
Awesome. Yeah.
but it was just too short.
It was pretty short, yeah. It was almost just kind of like a projection of, their special abilities for the majority of the fight till like towards the end.
Yeah.
Like you said, they were more or less almost like grappling each other. And like you said, she was using her Banshee Scream to try to help her project off against the walls and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was quite interesting.
Yeah.
I think she used it once because for some reason they changed the pit a little bit, so the spikes actually come out of the ground and then go back in, as opposed to just being there.
Right.
So there was one instance, I believe, where she was about to be impaled by one, and she screamed to push back, and then the spike shoots up right in front of her face.
Yes. Yeah,
so that was pretty cool, but certainly, like, Sindel dies in that scene, which is not great because Anna is just incredible. Like, at that point, I remember thinking, I hope she's back in the movie.
Yeah, it kind of disappointed me initially because I'm like, no, she's so amazing. I want to see so much more. I thought we were just scratching the surface here. No, but I think you were about to say, okay, thank God. It doesn't look like it's totally over yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank God.
Absolutely. And I mean, when you think about it, like, I'm a bit disappointed that scene was so short.
Yeah.
But considering the size of the pit bottom, when I stop and think about it realistically, I'm like, you know what? Maybe there wasn't too much more they could do with it.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe we're asking a little bit too much there.
Yeah, maybe.
Now, I believe the next scene is when things start to get a little more interesting. We see Quan Chi resurrecting Kung Lao amongst a bunch of candles.
Yes.
And, you can't see Quan Chi. He's obscured by the darkness, but you see the flashes of lightning, and that's when we see him. And what I will say is, we've had kind of like blurry screenshots of Quan Chi, and that's all we've gone off.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing him not only in this scene, but throughout the movie, I honestly don't think they could have done a better job with the way he looks. And on top of that, one sec. I just want to say, personally, I had, concerns about his voice. Hearing Quan Chi in the games and having that deep voice, that's what I associate with Quan Chi. But hearing what Damon did with this particular rendition of Quan Chi, I actually don't want the deep voice. I loved the voice that he brought.
What he did was amazing.
Yeah.
I was blown away by it. I didn't expect it. We had so many concerns. We thought it was going to be a wormy voice, maybe a little bit more on the high-pitched side. Nah, it wasn't any of that. It wasn't quite like the video games, but that's not a bad thing. It wasn't like a Donnie Meropis by any means, but that's not a bad thing. Damon made it his own, but it was very creepy. It was very appealing, and it was definitely Quan Chi. That was the first thing me and you spoke of. We like freaked out seeing the theaters. We're like, oh my God, he sounds good. He sounds good.
Yeah, he sounded really good. And whatever scene he was in, he just brought this incredible flair to it. Yeah, and I don't think I feel like he was probably the character, like the one character out of everybody. Whenever he, entered a scene, I almost wanted to lean in to the screen because I was just kind of curious, like, what's he going to do? What's he going to say? Because he was such an interesting character.
I was captivated by Damon's performance, yes. And any scene with him probably is one of my favorites, I would say. Now, I don't want to jump the gun too much with this. Maybe we'll talk more on it later, perhaps. But seeing that scene with him and Shang Tsung was incredible. The Deadly Alliance. That gave me chills. But anyways, going back to Quan Chi, what I was also very impressed with, you kind of touched on a little bit, was his look. Because, his head and stuff is a little warped or whatever, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. It wasn't too bad, and it kind of suited the character and sort of that creepy atmosphere that he had going. But furthermore, the tattoos were so well done. They look just like the game, man. I just thought, you remember seeing him like that in Deadly Alliance, and I was like, damn, they nailed it. They did a really good job.
Yeah, and to be honest, I guess looking at what was hinted at throughout the trailers, I thought his role would be quite minor.
Me too. I thought he was almost going to have no screen time.
Yeah, I thought you'd maybe see that scene and maybe one other, but I was pleasantly surprised by how much Quan Chi we actually got.
You know what's funny? We got exceptionally more Quan Chi in this movie than Shang Tsung.
Yeah. I'm actually
Quite a bit.
very shocked at how little Shang Tsung there was.
And yet we got no Quan Chi character poster.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't think I told you this, Chris, but Todd confirmed the other day, he confirmed on X that Quan Chi is going to have a massive role in the franchise going forward. So the third movie, he's going to play a pivotal role, which obviously me and you are excited about because he was so good.
Yeah, because I really feel like in this film, Shao Kahn obviously really plays a huge role.
Yeah.
And then I would say Quan Chi's the next bad.
Yeah.
And then Shang Tsung's like a distant third. Like, he really didn't do much in this movie at all.
I'm just going to go on about that. I was a little disappointed by that because, I mean, I love Shang Tsung, and me and you agree that Chin Han's version of Shang, he looked way better in this. It didn't look so clunky and kind of far-fetched. It just looked a lot more smooth this time. His hair even was better. Just everything. The scenes that we did get, I was very thankful. I think Chin did a wonderful job in this one. Yeah, I just wish we got a little bit more.
Yeah.
But hey, I think pretty much everyone who's watching this knows Quan Chi's my boy. That's my favorite character, and I perceive him as the most powerful sorcerer of all realms. And even, you know, John Vogel sort of hinted at that himself in the trading card videos. So, you know what? If we got more fixation on Quan Chi, I can't complain too much.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, something I wanted to touch on, I think we've mentioned it previously. So the next scene is, I believe, again, don't quote us on this, because there were also a lot of scenes that were intertwined. So you would have two fights happening at the same time, and it would actually cut between, or something was happening, and while that was happening, something else would go on elsewhere.
Yep.
So the scene I'm referring to at this point in time is Cole versus Shao Kahn in the Deadpool. So the Deadpool itself, I don't think there was no way they could have done a better job. I think it looked incredible.
Man, yes.
What I feel was missing, though, was there was, in terms of, it came in terms of sound. So there was no, it would have been so amazing if they added like a Deadpool rendition of some sort, the melody or something, just to make it, as a little nod to the game, because it just had just your generic orchestral music.
Yeah.
But to me, that was a missed opportunity.
Well, that and something else. Yes, I mean, I will totally agree. I didn't expect the camera work to be as good as it was for the Deadpool. My eyes were glued to the screen. Impressive. But yes, missed opportunity in general for the movie, actually, not just the Deadpool. When it comes to, you know, we were hoping for some type of nod of, Dan Toasty Forden's, you know, sort of scores. We wanted them to sort of slide in at least a couple notes into those famous arenas. We didn't really get that, unfortunately. But where was I going with this? Oh, yes. And another missed opportunity was we didn't get the proper kind of stage fatality that we thought we were going to get, you know, like an uppercut into the acid or somebody getting stuck on a hook or anything like that. But like you said, we kind of just got a small little thing of like Khan sort of, what was he, did he kick Cole Young's?
I can't remember. I almost feel like
Warhammer.
I feel like he pushed him with the hammer.
But almost like gently. There wasn't much oomph to it.
Yeah, there was just, it was almost like pushing him and dragging him. But I feel like even though that was a missed opportunity also, I really enjoy what he actually did, the way they did it.
Oh, what? Cole's death?
Well, I feel like every death in this movie, especially with regards to the heroes, it created a massive reaction by the crowd, because
Yeah.
To some extent, I think everybody expected Cole to die solely because at that point, Shao Kahn was immortal, right? So anything, he was almost like a Wolverine where he would get cut or stabbed and it would just heal instantaneously.
Yeah.
So I think at that point, everyone knew Cole was screwed. But with that being said, when he was killed, it was shocking.
Oh man,
Yeah, just the way, and then
the way it was done was so graphic and so boom, bam, that just happened. Like it was so sudden.
Because he was, Cole was powering up, and he was really hitting Shao Kahn hard at one point.
He was doing good,
and before he was killed, he was really ripping into him.
He was
until Shao Kahn healed, and
so in a way, like Cole almost could have won that, kind of like how he fucking defeated Goro. He almost and maybe could have defeated Khan, but it's because of the immortality that he kind of got screwed over.
Exactly. And look, I've said it once, I'll say it again. Come on, that should have been in there.
Yeah. Like, I mean, Dan Toasty Ford and coming up going, Toasty is asking a bit much.
Yeah.
A bit much. But yeah, that's something that could have been done, I think,
The next fight I want to touch on is Jax versus Jade. So I believe this is in the grounds of the castle again, from memory. At night. That's where they fought.
Well, it was his night scene.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you're right.
Yeah, and there was a lot of really interesting, just the fight. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was fine. That was probably my least favorite fight of the whole film, actually. But what I did appreciate about that scene was sort of the interplay with dialogue between Jax and Jade, and sort of kind of that major sort of mercy moment towards the end. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I really liked, because earlier on, when Cage and Katana fight, he basically gets he collapses because he's just been beaten around so badly, and despite Khan yelling finish him, Katana shows him mercy.
Yes.
And then as a favor, Jax shows Jade mercy. And I really liked Jade's face in that scene, because she was so shocked that he would do that for her.
Yes.
And I feel like that was because she's so fiercely loyal to Shao Kahn.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that was the first little glimpse of her maybe like starting to change her thinking a little bit. So yeah, that was really cool. So at some point, I feel like it's around this point, all the heroes are back in Raiden's Sky Temple, and out of absolutely nowhere, Kung Lao appears and starts threatening them, and he starts glowing a bit red and looks all powerful, and suddenly he summons his hat and he slices Raiden's throat.
Yeah.
And what I found was incredible in that scene was how there were so many shots and angles of the outside of the temple and inside of the temple, and just the light that was emitting from Raiden's throat
alone.
That was wild.
Yeah,
that was wild. And that one shot of Raiden kind of just struggling to, you could really feel that he was like struggling to breathe and stuff, and that really put him out of contention, because I feel like in the first film Raiden didn't really play much of a part, and he was quite big in the movie until that point. And then from then on, like, everything changed. Because I guess was that the part where Shang Tsung came in with the amulet and started taking his
Quan Chi was in there as well.
Yeah,
I thought that was great.
And essentially after that, he was levitating for most of the movie.
Yeah, he was
in a invisible hospital bed, essentially.
But I don't want to go off too much. But now that we're talking about Raidens and such, I love that earlier scene though, where we got to see Asano, where he's talking with Johnny Cage there outside on that balcony, and with the bird seeds and stuff like that. You know, that scene just added so much levity, and it was great sort of interplay of dialogue there. Really, really enjoyed that. You know, Asano, he did a great job, you know, I can't express enough. You know, just the costume, the attire.
Every single
Incredible.
person looked incredible.
Yeah. I remember we were trying to decipher, is there anyone that's like bad in this movie? I didn't think we really pinpointed one that was bad.
Yeah, and I think one thing that a lot of people brought up was, we'll get to it later, but Baraka, for instance, in the trailer when he says, "I find you annoying," when people hear that, they thought he sounds kind of off. He sounds a bit strange. But then listening to him speak, when he says that, I understand why he says it the way he does. And that was really good. So
about that in his voice though, it's so weird. When I was watching it, it's like, okay, either I'm really, really just becoming accustomed to it, and like you said, it makes sense and it's just suitable now, or it almost felt like they altered it ever so minorly in some way. I don't know if they did or not.
I don't know.
But it sounded actually quite good. I really got into it, much to my surprise.
Yeah.
I think, you know, CJ, I think he did a wonderful, wonderful job. I was just blown away. And speaking of levity, just, you know, the kind of weird chemistry that was going on between Baraka and Johnny Cage.
Yeah.
A real sense of just comedic gold.
Yeah, so I guess we'll go on to that scene while we're on the topic. So at some point I think this is when Katana starts visiting the heroes at the temple, and she makes mention of an underground passage under the castle.
And just to clarify, you know, in the movie there, she was pretty much a spy for Raiden, essentially, giving him all these details about Khan and stuff. So.
And when she was a child, Jared, in the very first scene, Jared gives her a pendant, like a necklace.
Yeah,
a little blue ball, I guess.
Yeah, let's just say. Yeah.
And that, he says, you know, what did he say? Something like, you know,
if you ever need me.
Like Lord Raiden will always be there for you.
Will always be there for you. Yeah.
And it seems like she uses the power within that to interact with those crystals in that cave to teleport. I don't know if that is only for Earthrealm or if it allows her to travel to other realms, but certainly she used it to travel to Earthrealm multiple times. And
but then again, I think it is for different realms as well. Possibly. Because when Jade caught her, she said, "You were in a different realm." Specifically, she didn't really know which one. So could be, you know, maybe it's just
yeah. But I think that was really interesting, and they obviously went to Baraka's
Tarkatan War Camp.
And what I found interesting, and I don't know if this is sort of common knowledge just yet, but when we were waiting to go in and the stars were on stage, when they were asking about CJ, when they were asking CJ some questions, he mentioned that Baraka was very interesting for him because Baraka is really the only one who can speak. And so he's the one they all look to, and he's the one that represents them.
You could tell clear as day in the movie. Yeah. The way they were looking at him, almost worshiping him. Yeah.
And in terms of looks, I believe he said when they first started the prosthetics, it took about 9 hours.
Yeah.
And they got it down to about 5 or 6. But even at 5 or 6, that is a major undertaking. Like to sit in that chair for 5 or 6 hours. Like me personally, if I get a haircut and it takes longer than 20 minutes, I'm getting impatient. You know what I mean?
Yeah, certainly. But yeah, you know, that mix of practical or CGI, everything they did with Baraka's face anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, just seeing it on the big screen on the IMAX, it was just, again, something that was even better than I thought. It just looked marvelous.
Yeah.
Man, nailed it.
And I loved how essentially they went to Baraka because they needed him to help them access the, or essentially fight for them as well, but also help them access these underground tunnels that weren't guarded under the castle.
Yeah.
and Liu Kang challenges him to a battle, and he refuses. And then Johnny opens his big mouth and does what he does best. And then suddenly,
be a cocky douchebag. Yep.
yeah, the battle is on between them.
No.
And I love how a huge part of that fight is basically Johnny running away from Baraka. And then he ends up in that hut with those kids, and he, puts his finger over his lips and says, "Don't say anything." And as soon as Baraka walks in, they both just point to him.
We were busting out laughing. Oh,
Yeah.
it was so good. But yes, again, Johnny Cage hasn't fought in a while, so he's sort of being kicked and battered, all this again. But I just loved that moment where Sony's like, "You're an actor. Act. Okay, I got this. And then you saw, the true Johnny Cage come out right there. And I also loved that scene where Johnny and Baraka were up real close, and Baraka's trying with all his might in this flurry to try and cut up Johnny with his blades. But it was almost like a Matrix reference when you saw Johnny Cage kind of smiling all cocky and just dodging it like no problem. That was so good.
Yeah. And what really caught me off guard in that particular scene, like that scene, I would say that scene is definitely probably one of the highlights of the movie. It was really, and I wouldn't expect it.
Yes.
But the part where he's basically, that after that scene, they're doing the, flapping their arms around and everything. And then out of nowhere, he's like, he has this extreme respect for Johnny, and he's like, "I want you to teach me." And
the greatest fight of all time.
yeah, like I love, because that makes him, it essentially highlights he's him being a creature, right? Like for him to stop and act that way, like no normal human would do that, right? So I thought that was absolutely fantastic.
And let's not forget the iconic Johnny Cage nut punch. He did it.
Yes. Yeah. That was
to hear the theater just roar in laughter was a highlight as well.
That was awesome.
No.
Now a scene that I think everyone would probably say is impossible to beat is the epic battle between Liu Kang and Kung Lao. Now, one thing I want to say, and I'm going to say it now, and then I don't want to talk about it myself.
Sure.
For the rest of the thing.
Sure.
As much as Warner Brothers did everything they could to amp up hype for this, there was way too much revealed.
Oh my God.
And one of them being that entire scene was released. Like, that is such a highlight.
It's the best. In my opinion, if I'm really to think it over, it's arguably maybe my favorite scene, actually. My favorite scene in the whole movie was that fight scene. By far the best fight.
Yeah, and I found it was like, I didn't expect it to be that long. This fight, and what I will say about all the fights, is that with the combination of really crispy sounds, they were all so intense. The way, the direction in this film was absolutely incredible. Like Simon, it was like, it was one of those things where it was like, Simon, was that really you?
Yeah.
Like the transformation, what Simon did in this film was incredible. And just the variety of moves. Like just when you thought you'd seen it all, like Liu Kang would do something different or Kung Lao would do something different. And I really liked how to me, the hat was almost like a living creature.
Oh,
like
I know.
He'd do these little hand gestures and it would like wobble and come to him. Like, I know it does that in the games, but it was so different. Like, and Max's acting and Ludi's acting in that scene was absolutely top notch.
They both have such great chemistry, and it really shows on screen. And shout out to Max. He disclosed that I believe he trained with like Shaolin monks in prep for this movie, and his movements are quite frankly almost just like otherworldly.
Yeah.
And I remember me and you looked at each other when we were watching. We're like, my God, he's so damn good.
And his movements are so close to Kung Lao in the games.
In general.
Like,
Yeah.
especially love the part where he did those like sort of like Ip Man, those really fast punches. Like,
Yeah.
that is him in a nutshell. I also liked how there were a few moments where he was teleporting from the hat.
Yes.
So he would throw the hat and then the hat would kind of glow and he would come out of the hat. That was amazing.
Yeah.
I loved seeing Liu Kang do multiple fireballs and also a flying kick.
The flying kick looked amazing. No bicycle, surprisingly, but the flying was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to point out something very interesting about that scene. So you brought up the whole kind of like tally marker earlier with the red and blue and how they're up in the sky there. In that fight scene with Kung Lao and Liu Kang, during the scene where Liu Kang looked like he was just about to be killed, did you notice that blue portal suddenly started turning red?
Yeah.
That was a brilliant attention to detail.
Yeah.
I thought that was so good.
And as soon as he was pushed off and it was clear that wasn't going to happen, it went blue again.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, something we have to talk about is how that scene ends. Because,
yeah.
look, let's just say it how it is, right?
Sure.
The hat, I loved the idea that the whole scene, Kung Lao is summoning this hat, right? And
yeah.
This hat is flying around. It is so ferocious. At times it would like fly around the arena and come at Liu from behind.
Mm-hmm.
But Liu, I think he kicks it downward and it embeds itself deeply into the ground.
Yeah.
And every time Kung Lao tries to summon it, it wobbles, but it won't move.
Mm-hmm.
And the best he can do is to create a buzzsaw.
Yeah.
Now, what really gets me, like, I'm excited just thinking about it, is the simple fact that Liu had to murder his friend.
Yeah.
And he basically said, I will come back for you.
Yes.
And what I loved was not only was Ludi upset in the eyes, but like he had like veins popping out of his head. Like he genuinely looked like
10
he
out
had
of 10
lost
acting.
his actual brother.
10 out of 10.
I can't even speak properly because I'm so excited. Like that scene was amazing. I thought to myself, maybe at some point later in the movie, he would do something to kind of make up for that.
Right.
But clearly that's something for the next movie. But just thinking back to that moment specifically, it really encompassed just how close, not only how close they were or are, but also the love Liu Kang has for Kung Lao. Like I said, he literally lost someone for the second time.
Yeah, for the second time, yeah. But it was just a cinematic marvel, the end of that scene as well. Because it almost looked like Liu Kang just gave up almost, or he had some type of weird plan. Like he was just going to fall back once he got punched ever so heavily by Kung Lao, like he was going to fly into that buzzsaw, the hat. But then, the tables are turned. Actually, he's got a plan. While in like midair, he grabs Kung Lao. He goes down onto instead. And like you said, just that moment of, Ludi as Liu Kang, his little speech there. And just the intense emotion that he put into that. There was a lot of heart to that scene, and it was just so well done. Yeah.
Definitely a highlight, for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, yeah.
So from there, I believe...
Oh, and no smoke.
Yes, no smoke. Yeah. I think as much as we wanted to see like someone extra, I think anything else, like... anything added to that scene would have ruined it. Like, I think it was perfect the way it was.
Yes. It should concentrate on those two characters.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of history there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So eventually when Baraka and Cage start their new bromance,
that was so great.
they head to what's now become Shao Kahn's castle in Edenia.
Yeah.
And once Sonya, Jax, and Cage and Liu Kang, once they all enter the temple, you see, I think Shao Kahn was sitting on the throne from memory.
Was he? I kind of remember him just sort of stepping out of nowhere.
Well, he was, I think he was in there chatting with someone. I can't remember. But either way, Shinnok's amulet is encased in this really cool looking cage.
Well, was it the scene before where he was talking to Kitana and then Sindel was...
Yes.
Yeah.
So just before that, Jade I think Kitana just returns from Earthrealm for, I believe, the second time in the movie.
Yeah.
And Jade catches her again, but this time she's got guards with her.
Yes.
And she basically takes her to Khan.
Yep.
And Khan has her shackled on her knees. And Sindel's back from the dead, seemingly. He said, I've asked Quan Chi to resurrect her again.
Yeah.
But the only reason he's done that is to torture Kitana. To use her mum as a pawn.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. And not only that, but Anna was actually in this weird kind of... I don't want to say
gimp mask,
but
but she was very restricted with moving. But it was just so interesting because you see Khan's hands, I believe, kind of on her head, threatening to kill her, and just the look, just Sindel already looked dead, like she just had nothing in her, like she's like whatever, just dead.
Yeah. And just seeing like Anna's like quite a petite woman.
Yeah.
And to see like Martin's giant hands on her as well really made her, like them working together, she looked like quite weak in that scene.
Yes.
And Kitana, through tears begged her, please don't. And I believe that's the point where Khan says, take her to the plaza or whatever it is. And
show the citizens,
show them what happens when you don't obey, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then essentially after that, we have those four heroes, Sonya, Cage, Liu Kang, and Jax, all trying to work together to get this amulet out of the cage. And what was really powerful in that scene was, again, Liu Kang was burning Khan like you wouldn't believe.
How badass was that scene where he summoned those two fire dragons and it just looked like it was going to be an instant fatality? And for most combatants, it would be. But because of Khan's, whole predicament there and his immortality, it was just like, yay, man, you itched me. What the hell?
Yeah, and just on that topic too, not to go back there, but with that scene with Kung Lao and Liu Kang, one thing I absolutely loved was when, whenever he would do a fire move, like Kung Lao would like pat himself down to get the fire off. That was incredible.
That was cool.
That was really cool.
Nice little touch there.
Yeah.
I like that.
But getting back to what we were talking about, I found it quite interesting how Liu Kang tried using Shao Kahn's hammer to break the cage and it didn't even budge. Yeah. And it wasn't until Jax started using his bionic arms.
But he had a hard freaking time, man.
Yeah, well, he had a harder time a little later. I think everyone was shocked to see what happened to Jax.
I didn't expect that. Cole, scene. We saw it. Jax, whoa.
Yeah, absolutely. That was pretty wild.
That was wild.
And before that too, just to have one of his arms ripped off too.
Yeah,
that was insane. And I believe that the second arm was like being destroyed at the same time.
Very random. When he had his arm ripped off and Khan just threw it there, remind me of Mortal Kombat Annihilation when Mataro ripped Jax's arm off and just threw it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that could be like a little nod
could be
to that too.
Yeah.
But I think they did an incredible job with Khan in terms of showing his savagery. He's just, like every scene he was in, he was just...
He just had
insane.
This presence. Yeah. Martin did a fantastic job, and he's just the look of the character. Like I said, the British accent's a little, it takes some getting used to. But I'm not saying...
on and off, right? Like at times it sounded a bit American.
Bit more?
Yeah,
I don't know. So that was a bit different. But no, he did a great job.
Yeah.
He nailed it.
Yeah. So yeah, that was that scene.
Yeah.
And again, like, you know, Shao Kahn was basically indestructible. And one scene we haven't mentioned yet, and if I don't mention it now, we'll forget. So when Kano is resurrected,
yeah.
his eye's missing, right?
Oh,
And-
that scene was so good.
And he was basically bugging Quan Chi to the point where Quan Chi just made an eyeball and rolled it on the floor.
rolled it.
And he's like, righto, mate. No, don't do that, you dickhead. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that was really cool. And he goes, oh, can you give me like the ability to shoot a laser as well?
And I found that amulet. Toss it to me, but don't roll it, you
Yeah,
wanker, or
yeah.
whatever it was.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, what did he say? This eye's like 3D. Huh, can you get the other one done?
No, HD.
HD. Yeah, sorry. It's like HD. Can you get the other one done?
yeah. That was, and then hats off to Josh Lawson too. I think like he didn't really play as big of a part, I would say. Like he certainly had his moments.
Not as big as a part in the first one.
No.
No, but he had a pretty decent sized role, I'd say.
Which I'm really happy about.
Well, let's face it. In MK 2021, more or less, he carried that whole movie on his back. I think it's kind of time to let some other combatants take, the shine for a bit.
Yeah.
And so I think, in my opinion, they had just the right amount of screen time for Kano. He was amazing in every scene. Once again, hats off to Josh. But, I think they did a good job sort of balancing on this movie. It was really well balanced. Yeah. So, yeah.
So, at some point after that, trying to think of the scene with Scorpion. How did we get there? So
basically, Cage literally was like a fraction of a second to grabbing that amulet, and then I think we saw Noob Saibot unexpectedly show up there and grab the amulet, and then they went to Netherrealm, right?
Yeah, and what was interesting was you see Cage and I think before that, Kano actually talks about how he can help them.
Yes.
Because he likes beer, he likes threesomes, he likes foursomes.
He likes foursomes.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder, like, was that his only motivation? Like, he wanted to suddenly save Earthrealm because there's too much, like, I think he said, like, Outworld's boring.
Yeah, have you seen Outworld?
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. It was a bit unusual for him to just change like that. Like, he's a bad guy and suddenly he's kind of still a bad guy, but he's helping the good guys.
Well, in MK 2021, ultimately, Cabal really influenced them to go to the other side because the only thing on Kano's mind at that time was money. Yeah. Money. I can make this place my own casino, blah, blah, blah. So in this movie, he just saw the bigger picture. He saw, holy fuck, these guys are kind of, I don't want to live in that realm. Fuck that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what I thought was really interesting was they went to visit Scorpion.
That was a cool scene.
And, Hanzo Hasashi.
Yeah.
And, we've seen that beautiful scene where he's in that beautiful Japanese garden. And they speak to him and, Josh or Kano takes a bite of a peach. And he's like, oh, this peach is incredible. You should try it. And, Hanzo basically says, like, you've come to the wrong place.
Yeah.
And what's actually interesting about that scene is it isn't until they mention Bihan still being alive, suddenly this feeling of vengeance takes over Hanzo.
Yeah.
And really, this garden that they're in is just a projection of his mind.
Yeah.
And they're actually in the Netherrealm. And everything shrivels and
Kano's delicious peaches start turning to ash.
Yeah.
And then you can see even Kano, he was getting sick.
Yeah. That was a real, and I really like the shot where you just see like the peach like shriveling up like that really, and just the way the world kind of
just shifted to the actual now.
And then you see, Bihan's body, kind of changing into Bihan.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't make any sense. Bihan's body changing to Bihan. Bihan's body, yeah, you know what I mean though. Like he's transforming into this new form, so to speak.
But I wanted to touch on that. So one of the things that I was most excited about in this movie, to be honest, was to see what exactly they were going to do with Bihan, turning to Noob Saibot. It just literally happened in like a millisecond. You just saw like Bihan walking down, and then boom, he was Noob. It's like, oh man, I was kind of hoping for like, a more elaborate scene of Quan Chi, getting really up in there and seeing the whole thing play out. And they didn't really seem to explore that. It just happened in a snap of a finger. I was a little disappointed by that. And that's kind of one of the cons of the movie I found. Like me and Justin McCage, actually, we're talking about, oh man, I think that's going to be one of the highlights of the movie. Yeah, well, good luck with that. It's like a millisecond. It's done. So that was unfortunate.
As a real fan, like, I get that he's Bihan, but I would have liked for someone to say, I don't know, like, shout out Bihan, and he's like, I am no longer Bihan, I am Noob Saibot, or something like that.
Just, I am reborn.
Yeah,
that's what he said.
That name is synonymous with that character, right?
Like,
and for it to not be used is unusual.
Whatever happened with that? Yeah.
You could think about maybe, Noob Saibot is obviously Boone and Tobias flipped.
Yeah.
But, neither of those names are trademarked, so I don't see why they couldn't use that.
Yeah.
I feel like they made a conscious decision for some reason not to use it.
And it's just crazy to see the shift where, Joe Taslim was easily one of the biggest, he played one of the biggest roles in MK 2021. In this movie, he probably had like the least amount of screen time out of all of them.
Yeah, it was really just that one scene.
It was just that one fight. And that sucks because people who know me, Noob Saibot, well, him and Rain, they are my favorite sort of ninja-esque characters. So in this movie, I really, really wanted to explore Noob and have some good dialogue in there and explore him. But we never really did. It was just that fight scene, and he was gone.
Yeah.
So, I was a little disappointed by that. Yeah.
So I guess from there, we move to the final fight. So in that final fight...
Oh, not yet. So, I also want to say that, the whole audience, the crowd went wild when we finally saw the real Johnny Cage at the end of that fight. Because we saw the green sort of powers.
Oh, yes.
That was the reveal. Johnny is finally here, and he essentially broke the amulet with his shadow kick.
Yeah, so
and he also did the cartwheel kind of thing as well.
I really liked in that scene. There was a lot of variety, so different people were fighting on different levels. You had Kano sliding down the rock face with his knife.
Yeah,
and he was using his laser to make like a little indent so he could grab on and climb. That was creative.
So good.
And when they were all trying to break the amulet, I love how everyone was focusing their power.
Yeah.
And even and then I thought, for a split second, I thought to myself, hang on a minute, what's Scorpion going to do? And he rips off his mask and blows the fire. And I'm like, of course. Like, that's so obvious. And then I think there were 3 powers all focusing on it. Yeah. And then it was that shadow kick that finally destroyed the amulet.
Yeah.
And that then segues on into the final fight. And I believe at this point, Katana is already fighting Khan. And she's hitting him, but obviously it's not affecting him. And shortly after the amulet is destroyed, that's what I believe when she slits his throat.
Yeah.
And that's when he puts his hand up and you see like quite a bit of blood coming down. But again, this bastard will not fall. Like, she attacks him a few more times and he has his hands around her throat, and it's like, this dude has been attacked so badly and injured, and yet he still has all that strength, and that really says a lot about who this guy is.
But I just wanted to say that towards the end of that fight, personally, for me, I was completely satisfied and very impressed when Kitana took his mask off.
Yeah.
Spot on to the comics.
Yeah.
Holy crap, he looked good.
Because as a kid, when I saw Khan unmasked as a kid, oh my god, I'm repeating myself. So let me start again.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, and I remember going through the comics and seeing Khan with his mask off, that was very like confronting for me. Like it was like, oh my god, does it really look like that under the mask?
Yeah.
But I really liked it in a way because by taking off that mask, she was removing power from him in a way. But also, because he's such an ugly bastard, I feel like it almost embarrassed him, because not only could they see how ugly he was, but they could actually see like the pain on his face as well, and the fear in his eyes.
It's almost like fear, and the humiliation, really. Yeah.
But did you notice too in that scene, before Jared is killed in the beginning, I can't remember the exact moves, but he does 2 moves, and the second one is like sticking something sharp up into his armpit.
Right.
And Kitana does the exact same 2 moves.
Ooh.
I don't know if you noticed that.
That's very true.
So
no, it didn't click together, but now that you mention it, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like, even though she didn't say anything, it was almost like, this is for my dad.
Yeah.
And I'm going to kill you the same way he tried, but I'm going to succeed.
Well, and she whipped out that sort of band there too, right towards the end, and that's when shit got real.
Yeah.
Very powerful scene.
Yeah, and I think by using that band, because it came from Jared, it was like, my dad helped me here.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I got my revenge. And what was interesting too in that scene is when it was finished, how they all started calling her, what was it, Hail the Queen or
Hail
something?
the Queen,
yeah. And there's that one scene where you see her walk and sit on the throne, and like Jade's by her side.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder where Sindel is at that point.
Oh shit! Yeah. Where did she go?
Yeah, like has Khan killed her off camera?
Off camera,
she's just gone. Is she maybe healed and she's resting somewhere?
Maybe Quan Chi took her. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think the way the movie ended was so good. Like, I really enjoyed how Johnny was telling this story, and then there were all these like young Tarkatans there, and and then I believe the last shot where they're all sort of like walking toward the camera.
Yeah, they released that shot online actually.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool.
It looked really badass.
Yeah.
Really badass.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole bonfire scene, the lighting, and everybody sitting down like that made me think of Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance.
Yeah.
And then you saw Raiden come in there too.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. I think that was incredible.
Very well done.
Is there anything we've missed that you can think of? I'm sure. And again, I want to stress that this is a very late night episode. Well, I just looked at the time. It's very late. And, we've just been to this exciting event. We saw... Who was there? There was Josh Lawson, Carl Urban, Anna.
Anna. Desmond. Simon, the director, was there, of course. Bennett Walsh. Did you say CJ?
Jess McNamee.
Yeah.
CJ Bloomfield was there as well.
Yeah. Are we forgetting one other?
I think that's Chin Han as
well.
Chin
Han. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So there were a lot. And Desmond, I don't believe, was actually listed on the invitation. So someone messed up.
But if I
was glad to see him there, though.
Oh, very glad. He wasn't on the official invitation on 2 different ones I've seen. He was not there. But then if you went to the Darling Harbor IMAX website, he was there. Yeah. So very confusing. I don't know what happened there. Yeah.
But it was so good to see them there, and again.
And sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. And then when sort of the actors were in front of the screen there towards the end, and all of them were coming up the aisle there to get to their seats located in the back. I remember, me and Chris, we have a good connection with Anna. So we kind of like screamed her name, and she saw us, and she was like, "Oh my God, there you are! It's them! There they are!"
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was great. That was great. And actually, we got lucky enough to meet Jessica McNamee after.
Yeah.
That was really, really cool. She was very, very sweet.
Nice. Yeah. Sure. So I guess do we want to move on to just like a general list of our positives and negatives? Like I have nothing written down. I'll just
me
do it off
neither.
from memory. But do you want to go first?
Geez, where do I start? Okay, well, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but I think the main con of this movie, if anything, is just I wish there was a bit more storytelling. You know what I mean? But I mean, there's only so much that you can do in a 2-hour film. And at the end of the day, what fans want to see, well, what a lot of fans want to see, I guess, and especially the casual viewers when you're going to a movie called Mortal Kombat, is fights. So, I get it. And I will say that they were very, very well done, very entertaining. And again, I gotta praise Simon. It was such a vast improvement. What Simon had said before in an interview rather recently is that his main goal with this film was to make it feel like the first 10 minutes of MK 2021. That's what he said. And I think he succeeded.
Yeah.
Because I was thoroughly invested the entirety of the movie. I can't even personally think of any scene where I was bored. I wasn't bored once. It was just amazing. It had such a good fluidity to it. Again, the choreography, very well done. The camera work, great. And Benjamin Wallfish's score. Even though we didn't get those sort of hints to the game's music, I think we both agreed that the music was definitely better.
It was a massive improvement.
Massive improvement. Like you kind of said yourself, Chris, it sort of had that epic, rich kind of like Lord of the Rings-esque vibe to it.
Yeah.
Which is what I think a lot of the diehards want to see. Because I've made it clear before, as a diehard fan, the main reason, to be honest, why I love Mortal Kombat is just its lore, its storytelling, and just its rich sort of flavor and how deep it goes with the characters, all that. So I wanted to sort of explode into this massive franchise where you're going into TV shows, going into more movies, and we still have another 3 coming up. I definitely think this one's going to be a success. So you know what I mean? So it was a great improvement in that regard. I'm trying to think of any other negatives. I mean, the costumes, again, all so good.
When I think of the costumes, I don't think any of them were subpar. They all looked fantastic.
Yeah,
they look like they came from a game. Like all of them.
Yeah,
they were fantastic.
Yeah, I remember there was one thing we were talking about earlier, though, which was a little confusing. But again, we only seen it once. We got to watch it again. But I was a little confused still on why Jade was like bald the way she was and why it differed so much from the games. That was a bit strange. I thought maybe there would be an explanation in the story as to why. But I don't think we really got that.
Yeah, there was no real explanation whatsoever.
No.
And, I mean, I guess in hindsight, I'm okay with it now because we're kind of used to it. But
Toddy did an amazing, lovely job either way. So, I'm not just going to let a bald look like just ruin the whole performance or anything. I think she did phenomenal.
I mean, if she had hair, it would have been better.
Yo, certainly.
But
certainly.
Does it take away from the Jade character? I thought it would, but it didn't.
I agree.
Oh. So I'm totally fine with that.
I'm trying to think if there's any particular performance that was underwhelming or anything. Was there for you?
I don't think so.
I think everyone did a stand-up job.
I want to make an honorable mention of one character in particular because I know when Carl Urban was cast as Cage the beginning.
Yes.
I feel like almost everybody
was disappointed
and confused.
Yeah.
And even before this movie launched, like even quite recently, I was still on the fence. I had no idea if it was either going to be a disaster or epic. And hats off to Carl.
Oh my God.
He did such an incredible job as Cage in every scene. Every scene. He really embodied the character.
He did. And the comedy, it just felt so natural, so Cage-like. Yeah. None of it felt forced.
Well, I was actually going to mention that. So in terms of pros and cons, I'm not going to rattle off a list because I pretty much agree with everything you said. My question to you is, do you think the film was too funny? Because there were so many points that were funny. And this is the interesting part. I laughed more in that film than I have for many comedy films. And yet I don't think that's a bad thing because it just worked.
It worked. But listen, it's a very, very serious and grounded movie. And I think sometimes in those type of movies, you need, some comic relief to keep things entertaining and laugh once in a while. I mean, the funniest moments really were Kano, Johnny Cage, and unexpectedly, and he wasn't even trying, Baraka.
Yeah.
But you know what? But at the same time, it worked for Baraka, like you said. He was like absolutely shocked and astounded on how talented Cage was.
Yeah.
And he naturally just really wanted to know his wisdom and to learn the tricks of the trade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to be funny. But for us to see that, it's like, oh, that was unexpected. But that being said, I wouldn't say that the movie was too much on the comedy side. I think it was just right, actually. Again, this comes to the thing of balance. I think it was all balanced quite well. MK 2021 also had a lot of good laughs. What was I going to say? Oh, it's not like, that Street Fighter movie that's going to come out. Yeah. That's almost like just goofy, kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat is not that. This was a very grounded movie with, a couple good laughs, but I just thought it was handled very, very well.
Yeah, and on that topic too, I feel like this movie set such a high benchmark that I think it's almost impossible that the Street Fighter movie is going to be better.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion. I could be wrong, but
I also want to say this too. And again, this comes back to Simon. My God, man, you did amazing. But one of the concerns I had with this movie, remember, I told you before the movie started, I was like, oh, man, I hope they don't do that stupid montage bullshit again. Well, they did, but it wasn't bullshit. Let me correct myself. They did the montage stuff, but it wasn't bullshit. It was actually very entertaining this time. It didn't have all those crazy quick cuts and weird editing that the MK 2021 film did. None of that. All of that, in my opinion, was eliminated. I was thoroughly engaged with the fights and just the camera work. I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of cons,
yeah,
I will add a few extras.
Yeah, let's hear.
So my main one is nothing to do with the movie itself.
Yeah.
It's to do with the lead up to the movie.
Oh, yes.
I think they went overboard. And
God,
the problem with that, so I did my best to avoid socials this whole time for weeks now, right? Because there were just so like there's too much, and then there's too much, and it was way too much.
Way too much.
And I think ultimately, even though I missed a lot of what was released on purpose, I feel like when certain things happened, like for example, when Liu Kang walked into the castle, I knew, the fire,
the dragons, and how he was gonna pretty much plaster freaking Khan on the ground and burst all his flames into his face. Like I
understand that. Really, when you stop and look at it, like we overanalyze trailers, so I think certain things like really stick with us in that sense, and that takes a little bit away from the film. It's not really the film's fault. And again, when you have a trailer, it's a preview of what's coming, so naturally you will see things.
Yeah.
But I do feel like with certain scenes, the other one I want to mention too, and this is a huge oversight, I think, is in one of the analysis that you did.
Right.
You actually mentioned there's a scene where Katana's shouting, and there's someone on the floor dead. And it looks like they're wearing boots. And you said, I wonder if that's Khan.
And it was.
Now, when you watch, it is Khan. So if you were editing that trailer, why on earth would you use that shot?
That was such a weird move.
Like they could have...
Or Or, yes, they could have done what I think some Marvel movies do, where in the trailer, they, with their computer wizardry, they take him out or her out of the trailer.
Yeah.
They should have done that.
Yeah, so she could have been like talking to the crowd, but there was no one there. So it was like she was standing there by herself.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think that was,
What a
again,
weird
nothing to
move.
do with the movie itself.
Yeah.
Because we're we're talking about everything, right?
But what I want to say about that, now, this comes back to, I think it was our last episode, where I said MK 2021 was sort of testing the waters, but it was released at a terrible time, yada, yada, yada. This was their first proper theater sort of trek, right? But it's just like, they really, really want to make sure that this movie does bloody good and gets the theater success. And, with the test screenings and such, it did so well that they postponed the movie by, 8 months or whatever. Clearly, they had a lot of faith in this movie. And so I think, Warner and the likes, they just really wanted to make a point to sort of show as much excitement as they could for the movie online to get people amped up to sort of, solidify their success. So I think maybe that's why they did that. And in a way, I can kind of understand, because if this movie explodes, then there's a lot of goodness coming. But that being said, let's take a step back, please, for Mortal Kombat 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
Show 1, maybe 2 trailers. Let's stop there. No, not 4 trailers, okay, please. And the TV spot, stop showing all these scenes. And before you go on, Chris, I just want to say actually one of the big cons of this movie as well, and it breaks my heart to say this. It really breaks my heart. There was not, besides some of the death scenes, there was not really one genuine scene in the whole film that was a major surprise. I'm sorry. I'm not going to lie. I sort of saw this whole movie coming from compiling everything online. I was very disappointed by that. I thought maybe we would get, a surprise arena that we didn't see. No. I thought maybe we'd get a sort of a combatant that was not revealed online or something. We didn't get that. We pretty much saw a lot of the major all of the major scenes online. That was a huge con, man.
I feel like whoever edited the trailer literally cut shots from every single scene and like every second angle, and just like the trailer was epic, the music was epic, but it just showed too much.
Yeah.
And I think one thing they really have to stop doing is releasing an entire scene. Like here's this entire scene. I don't care if it's the first 10 minutes. I don't care if it's a fight. That should not happen. You should have the trailer, and then maybe you release like kind of like what they do with games. They release like a teaser trailer, and then you have a trailer, and then maybe there's like a launch trailer, which is all similar but maybe a little bit extra, and that's it. I don't want to see anything spoil, because although the movie is enjoyable, the question is how much more would fans enjoy it if they genuinely went in and they were surprised by something they hadn't seen. Like if there was an extra scene with an extra arena and it wasn't in the trailer, we would have been like, oh my God, what's this?
That would have been amazing. That's what I was hoping for. That magic.
Yeah.
But we didn't get it.
One of the other cons too is, so when the movie ended, we had incredible graphics, and they were synchronized to the latest version of Techno Syndrome, which was really cool. One thing I found quite disappointing was, it had like, Sonya and Jax and everything. But then at the end, when he says flawless victory, it just lists like, it was like 3 or 4 characters, and it's like, why don't they get their own slide? Like I thought,
it's like they just got tired of okay, and those 4 and those 4.
On top of that,
but the music, remember,
the music from the start of the credits right to the last dot was top notch,
and it ended on a very sort of.
I really enjoyed that, but it was such an opportunity to do, like, the final scene I really enjoyed, but it's going to be a long time before we have the next film, right?
But Todd did confirm it's not going to be 5 years again.
Yeah,
Thank the Lord Almighty. So my guess, in a perfect world, maybe 2-3 years, maybe.
Yeah, I'd say so. But if, like you said, if Quan Chi is going to play such a huge part in the future story, why not have, fade to black, have a scene where maybe it's like a dark and you hear like feet shuffling or something, and then you kind of see a hooded somebody doing something, and it only has to last for like 30 seconds or a minute at most.
Yeah.
But how many people stayed back hoping for something like that, and there was nothing? To me, I don't know, I'm not crash hot on post-credit scenes, but in this instance, for a franchise that I absolutely adore,
right,
it would just like it was almost like, okay, the story's wrapped up, but it's just a little tease of what's next, kind of like in MK9 at the end of the story mode when Shinnok comes in. That's unexpected because the story wraps up with Liu Kang and everything.
Yeah.
Like that little extra something, I think, would have added.
Yeah, such a missed opportunity. I remember me and you were pretty bummed about that. I had, as I said in the last episode, I had high expectations. Because if Warner had such bloody, so much bloody faith in this movie, you'd think for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, that there'd be something. Just a simple tease, something. No. So, very unfortunate there, but yeah.
And final point I've got here, unless you have anything else you want to add, is what did you think about the special effects? I thought they were really good.
The special effects were fantastic. The only sort of one that I thought looked a little wonky, the only one, was when Johnny Cage fell in the Netherrealm and he was bouncing between all those rocks. That looked a little rough. But the rest, fantastic. Beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So my question to you, as a diehard fan
here it comes.
Of the movies, is this the definitive Mortal Kombat movie? And I know, put aside any feelings of nostalgia.
Yeah, that's what you got to try to do.
So, for example, you might think, okay, the 95 film will always be special to me. But if you were to put them all on a level playing field and look at them for what they are, how would you say this one rates?
Oh man, this is probably the hardest question I've ever been asked in my life. Because look, at the end of the day, this movie, MK2, was amazing. The fights were so entertaining. Oh man, I can't praise it enough. But MK 1995, like you said, sort of nostalgic feelings aside, I'm going to say this right now, and I'm going to say this right here. MK 1995 did a much better job exploring the story. And that's where I give the major points to. It really sort of took its time. Some scenes in the 95 film almost, in a way, to some people that I've talked to, it felt almost like too much of a slow burn. But I didn't mind that because we were really exploring those characters and stuff like that. Because, as we've just discussed, MK2, one of the things that was just so unfortunate was we didn't really get to dive into some of these backstories too much, like Noob Saibot, or I'm sorry, Bihan, was just kind of more or less swept to the side, like the very, very minuscule character. I was so kind of heartbroken by that. I don't know. I just, like I said, like that scene between Johnny Cage and Raiden talking on the balcony and stuff like that. Like that was great. I kind of want to see more of that, but we didn't really get that. It was just, fast-paced fights and stuff like that. But, so yeah, I think that's where MK95 succeeded. But if I'm to be honest, where MK2 by far succeeded, and this is just my opinion, the fights. So much better, so much more entertaining in this film. Needless to say, the graphics are much better in this film. But MK2 also does a phenomenal job with character authenticity in terms of like their appearances. My
that was
God!
that was my point I was going to make. I was going to say,
Yeah.
the characters look incredible. They look like they've come from the game, but
Good
they haven't just
God.
done a copy paste. Like they've actually created unique costumes for this film.
Gave them their own life for this movieverse.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's where I think it really excels. Like in terms of the visuals, not only the costumes, but the sets. So like,
the sets.
it's like Carton War Camp, if that's what it is. Either way, where they live.
Yeah, it's Turkey War Camp, yeah.
That looked incredible.
Yeah.
Just the detail in like all the bones everywhere and all the huts and everything.
Yeah.
I've always wanted sets that seemed grand.
Yeah.
So for instance, you know, even the castle, like and you know, the whatever you call it, where they fight, you know, in that
it kind of
area.
looked like the
marketplace
temple.
almost, like, yeah,
oh,
like,
the marketplace kind of. Yeah,
like,
outside. Yeah.
like everything
Yeah.
looked so good, and I liked how some of those outdoor scenes had almost like a fantasy glow to them.
Yeah,
Which
love that.
Gave Edenia like its own kind of feel.
Yes.
But yeah, overall, did you answer the question?
Not quite. I'm still trying to decide here, Chris. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any other area where MK 1995 sort of surpassed MK2. And right now, all I can really say for sure is the storytelling was much better handled. Because, you know, you look back at some of the sort of attires and stuff that they had for MK95, it's not that great. Trying to think what else. Some of the character entrances for MK95 though just are really special to me. Like to me, it gives me chills just thinking about it. The entrance of Scorpion and Sub-Zero on that boat from 95, one of my favorite moments ever. Like I kind of wish more characters in this new movie verse like would kind of have that much oomph when they first come on the screen. Like again, you know, not to sound like a broken record, Noob Saibot came in too fast. You know, it didn't have that oomph.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, it's hard to answer that because obviously I can't help it. There's a certain nostalgic feeling for that MK95 and the storytelling. So it's so special in its own right. And some of the music by George S. Clinton is so good and iconic in that movie as well. You know, the Scorpion versus Johnny fight so grand. Reptile versus Liu Kang so grand. So, you know, I can't really answer that conclusively. But in a lot of points, I'm just going to say this. MK2 surpassed it in flying colors. So, I don't know, maybe MK2 on a slight bit.
Yeah. I think...
Wait. Before you go on. Maybe this is what you're going to say. I don't know. If I was to show somebody for the first time a Mortal Kombat movie, let's watch a Mortal Kombat movie, I want to show you this universe, 110%, I'm going to say right now, Mortal Kombat 2. That is so much more authentic, and so I would choose that one. So that's what I got to say about that.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've more or less forgotten what I was about to say.
Oh, you're welcome.
But yeah, overall, I was hugely impressed by this film.
Totally.
No film's going to be perfect, especially if we sit here and we analyze it. Actually, I remember now. So
That's good.
Yeah, I think there was so much to take in. And it wasn't just the film itself. It was like just the whole event that we attended. Like there's a lot for my brain to process.
Yes.
And so to some extent, this episode is probably a little topsy-turvy.
Sure.
In terms of, you know, what we're saying. And I think we can only really have be in a clear state of mind if we actually go ahead and watch the movie again.
Yeah.
Because obviously we're going to notice different things.
I'm going to look for all those Easter eggs, baby. Ludi, Lynn, and Todd said there's so many Easter eggs, but there was so much going on and so many feelings. Yeah. We just didn't really point out a lot of things.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think maybe next week or later this week, we'll check it out again and
100%.
go from there.
Yep.
So do you think we should give it a score?
Ooh.
I think we should.
Okay. Who's going first?
It's up to you. I can go first if you like.
Okay, you go first.
Look, it's really hard to give it, again, a score without... I can't even remember what I gave the first film.
It's funny because for the first film, I think at the time I gave either like a 7 or 8. But like, again, the more I watched MK 2021, the more and more I disliked it. And you just, point out all these flaws and stuff like that. And like, if you were to ask me now, I'd say maybe a 6. You know what I mean? So obviously, as you're sort of inferring, this was our first time. There's all these feelings with MK2. So yeah, our feelings for this movie even and ratings could change down the line. But as for right now, anyway, yeah, go on, Chris.
Yeah, I think if I take everything into account, just how much they've improved, it's so obvious that they've listened to fans. Oh. It's so obvious that they love this franchise.
Yeah.
And I feel like even some of the actors who may not necessarily know too much about Mortal Kombat, like they've developed a love for not only the franchise, but for its fans too.
Yeah.
I really feel that. So if I was to give it a score, after my first watch, taking into account some of its flaws, overall, I would probably, believe it or not, I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10.
That's more or less exactly what I was aiming for. It was about a 9. I was like, definitely a 9. Almost kind of leaning towards a 9.5.
Really?
Almost? Yeah.
That high?
So that's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely a 9 though. But like you said, when you sort of consider those cons into place, that's why it might tip it down to a 9. But it was a phenomenal film. Yeah, I mean, 9 is a high bloody score. It was so well done.
Yeah, unlike Toasty, I can't answer that question. So if I was to rank the films, all of them, I would put this at the top.
Yeah, and Annihilation is a -5.
No, second, right? Yeah, I definitely think I would probably put this first and then 95 seconds.
Nice. Wow.
Just purely because, yeah, I think also because, I mean, part of it may be because we were at the event and knowing that this amazing talent is in the room with us.
Yeah.
Even when we spoke to Jess McNamee, like she told us that this was the first time she'd actually seen the movie. So knowing that we were watching it for the first time with her was a pretty cool thing to hear.
It's a very, very special feeling. Yeah.
So aside from that, I think that more or less sums up our initial review. I believe at some point we'll probably get together with a few others on the podcast and do another review.
Yeah.
Once the dust settles and our brains kind of come down from this high that we're on.
There will probably be a lot of different points that we surprisingly, didn't, bring up to light in this one that we'll bring up later. And obviously we'll find new Easter eggs and stuff like that, or maybe just some other small details in the story that we didn't pick up. So very excited actually to revisit this later on, Chris. I think that's going to be great.
And one thing I actually wanted to mention that I didn't mention at the beginning.
Yeah, go for it.
Was when this opportunity to see the film early presented itself.
Yeah.
We had the opportunity to see the film actually about a week ago in late April.
Yeah, we did. And
along with that would have come, I guess, higher privileges, the ability to interview some of the higher ups and the talent from the film. And as incredible as an opportunity as that would have been, Toasty wouldn't have made it in time.
First of all, I tried my best to get here as early as I could already, but work it wouldn't allow me to come for late April. So.
And knowing how far Toasty came, flew all the way from Canada to Australia to be here, I just couldn't see myself going to this myself, to watch it myself, and then go into this screening having seen it already. Like, I genuinely feel so good that we actually went in and watched it ourselves.
Going in
both of
fresh,
us the
man.
first time.
Yeah.
So
There's just this just electric energy in that room, and seeing it with you, brother, and just saying the odd thing to each other, during certain scenes, and our reactions to like, whoa, that just happened.
yeah, and again,
and us laughing. Oh, it was
again,
great.
for this to
great.
be your first time watching any MK film in a cinema with the talent in there watching it with us, like, that's
Is a dream come true for me, because I had never even seen Mortal Kombat in theaters before. All I wanted to do was just simply sit in a theater and watch it. But lo and behold, not only did I just sit in the theater and watch it, I the third biggest screen in the world, all the talent behind us, with my brother from another mother here. Like, it's just so crazy that all that just came together like that. I will never forget that. And I remember after it was all done, we talked said hello to some of the actors and stuff. We got an ice cream, and it's like, whew. Okay, time to unwind now. I can't believe all that just happened.
Yeah.
Let's have an ice cream, look out in the water, and just take a few breaths. Whew.
Yeah.
Like, it was just so surreal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
So not just the movie, but the whole
Experience.
Whole
really.
experience was incredible, and it was honestly awesome to have you here to experience that with somebody.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned in the previous episode that I went to watch the original films with my father.
That's right.
But I've never actually gone with a friend.
Wow.
For the first time.
Yeah. Holy
so
shit.
that was an awesome experience, and it's certainly strange to do this recording with you sitting next to me. Again, this is the dodgiest setup probably known to man. I'm actually sitting on a pillow right now just to prop myself up because this couch is so low.
It's on like a therapist couch there too.
Yeah, essentially. I'm clearly choking because I'm dying, and my back is broken.
We shifted a lot of shit around in this damn room to get this set up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you for joining us for this super dodgy episode. If you do have the opportunity to see Mortal Kombat 2, absolutely take it.
Do not miss out.
We were lucky enough to see it early, but by the time this review's out, you will also have the opportunity to watch it. So if you had any doubts, don't listen to them. Just go and watch it.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, this is just a whole different movie in itself, a whole different monster. I mean, compared to the first one. And they improved every single thing in every way.
Absolutely.
And just, you will not be disappointed. I can't see why they would be disappointed. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so with that being said,
yeah.
Again, thank you so much for watching. Shout out to Daryl Sung, who's been a big supporter of ours.
Yeah.
We had some great time. We really enjoy when the fans interact with us, so feel free to follow us on social media. We're on pretty much all of the platforms, including Facebook now. Haven't really put that out there. I think we have like 3 followers or something right now.
Hey, you got to start somewhere. We completely canceled that page years ago. But you know what? We're back there now. So if you can spread the word, help us out a little bit.
Absolutely.
Would appreciate it big time.
And whether or not you follow us on YouTube or if you're listening to us on a podcasting app, just audio, please help us out. If you can share this episode or any of our others with friends. We've got a lot of really cool interviews with
even your grandma.
Yeah, exactly. If your grandma's into Mortal Kombat, then by all means go for it. Either way, it's been a blast, and you know how it goes.
Have fun, stay safe, and
stay flawless. My butt hurts so much.
Holy shit, yeah, my butt, my back. Let's get off this dodgy shit.
Can I go to bed now?
Yeah, let's do that.